Hi, I'm LaVonda with Homeschoolific, and I had a request for a pros and cons video for the first language lessons for the Well-Trained Mind, levels 1 and 2. So here I am, a little bit late, but let's get into it. So I actually wrote my pros and my cons down. I've got both levels 1 and 2 here with me, and so I'm trying not to give you guys a glare. And so disclaimer, I really don't have that many cons. So I'm going to say what my pros are and a couple cons that I might have. But honestly, my pros might end up being some of your cons. If you ask my personal opinion for early elementary, I kind of have a trio for language arts that I think, well, I guess it's more of a quattro, really, depending on what type of learner you are. Now, first language lessons, the what am I thinking? Phonics. I'm thinking for phonics. Explode the code. Having a mom brain fart this morning. Okay, so first language lessons for grammar, explode the code for phonics, and if your child's doing like handwriting, because we don't do like formal writing, but if you're including handwriting, we always do a reason for handwriting. So like that's kind of like my trio, and I even say quattro because if you're going through the how to teach 100 easy lessons, teach your child to read in 100 easy lessons, that's a good one to kind of do together if you're toward the end. So like if you've gotten past lesson 50, I would say you can kind of do those together. So anywho, they just all kind of work very well together. They complement each other. It's kind of like the next level. So even if you started with that and then jumped into started with the 100 easy lessons, and then jumped into the other three, once you finish that book, even better. So I have a list of my pros and cons that I wrote down. At first I wasn't going to use a list, and I tried recording this video just off of what I was thinking. It's not good because I ramble, as you just saw like a minute ago. But anyway, so my pros first. I like that their lessons are scripted. So they tell you exactly what to say and what to expect your child to say. Number two is they encourage you to make sure your child is speaking in complete sentences. And if your child is not, just gently correct them. So if you ask a question, what is a noun? And then they say, a noun is, or if you ask them, what is a noun? And they say, a person, place, thing, or idea, you would say, okay, let's try. A noun is a person, place, thing, or idea. And that's a complete sentence, right? So just encouraging them to speak in complete sentences, which also encourages them to speak in complete sentences, not just while you're educating them, but also while they're in conversations. So I like that a lot. My third pro was there's a how to use this book part in the beginning section of the book so if you're a newbie, I've been using first language lessons since my daughter started schooling. So I think we started this in first or second grade with her as well. So a long time. And then I used it with my boys as well. So what I loved about it was that I was new to homeschooling. She was my first one. And so it told me exactly what I needed to do. And even once I used it again for my boys, I just kind of go back and reread it just to make sure I'm on track. And so if you're new to homeschooling, or if you haven't had a child in lower elementary for a while, I would just jump in, read that, make sure you're on track and you understand what the expectation is. And it's really just quite simple, but it more than anything prepares your mind to start teaching. The fourth thing is the poems. I really enjoy the poems. you just kind of repeat the poems over and over, and it's really for memory for your children. But there's so much character building in a lot of the poems that they've chosen, and also just poems that focus on memorizing things that they should know, like the days of the week and the months of the year and those types of things, and how many days are in each month, right? So 30 days have September, April, June, and November. All the rest have 31, except for February alone, which has 4 plus 24, or 24 and 4, till leap year gives it 1 day more. So like those types of things that remind you as a child, and even as an adult, if you have a hard time with those types of things, how many days. So it's just, I feel like it's kind of it's set up in a very good way so that the poems remind your children about character traits and just things that they need to know. So my fifth one is that the books are called levels. So if you've got a child who may be in like 3rd or 4th grade and they've had no grammar, or you pulled them out of school, or you waited a little bit, a little bit later and decided to start digging in to make sure they're levels. They're not grade. It doesn't say grade 1 or grade 2 or anything like that. So you could start your child at any age on level 1, because it's going through the basics of grammar, and then move on through level 2s and 3s, levels 2 and 3, until they've got a complete kind of foundation for grammar, which is great. So that can be discouraging for a child who didn't really have a good foundation for grammar, who might be in 5th grade, or 4th grade, or even older, to see that they're being started on a book that says grade 1, you know what I mean? Or grade 2. These are levels. So you can start this at any age, anytime you see your child needs a better foundation for grammar, this is a solid foundation. I haven't really tried a lot of many other kind of language arts for lower elementary. I've always kind of built my own, and this is the best out there for grammar. My humble opinion, right? The best. So level 1, and even with like the level 1, so it tells you right on the bottom, it shows you the levels. I still started my boys a little bit later, so you could, then what, in my mind, like level 1 1st grade, and it's very simple, but that's not where it doesn't have to be a 1st grader that starts at level 1. It could be any grade, preferably lower elementary, but it really can be any grade. So that's a great one. I also like my 6th pro is that there's lots of repetition. So it kind of goes through, and things in level 1 are also repeated in levels 2. Why do I keep saying levels? In level 2 is just one book. And I like that because I believe in that spiral method where it reaches back from to things that you've already taught your child, or things that they should have been taught. And it helps to remind them of those things and make sure that they memorize them properly. And number 7 is that you can select the copy work that your child will do. So these books, okay, I'll jump into that part later. Because I think that could be a con depending on your personality type. But there's copy work with shorter sentences. So there's things that they have your children copy. Sometimes it's just a sentence, but they've got levels. So there's like a 3-word sentence, a 4-word sentence, a 5 or 6-word sentence for your child that's used to writing more. It's not even about like being able to read really well on this. It's more focused on your child's writing endurance. So if you're starting this in kindergarten or 1st grade, and you just know like your child does not enjoy writing, they struggle with just their dexterity or whatever the case may be, what I would suggest is giving them the shorter sentences. once you see them kind of moving along throughout the book, gradually give them, like the medium length sentence. Or if they have no problem with writing, throw them into the long sentence and they'll be fine. Here's a tip. I found that when you're looking to get a child to write longer, which is what I did with my boys in particular, I made sure I put art lessons on for them. So Art for Kids Hub on YouTube. Great art lessons. And I would have them focus on that. And they just kind of did an art lesson every day with them. They draw and then they got to color it. And so I believe that the more that they do those types of things, the more they are prepared to write more. So the more that they draw, the better they are with longer sentences. Their writing endurance, it just increases it dramatically. Art plays a big role in that. So anyway, my last pro is that the lessons are not too long. You can get through a lesson, honestly, depending on the lesson, it can range from, some of the lessons you're just reading through. There are a couple, it's more than a couple. There are a handful of lessons where you're kind of just getting feedback on a portrait that's in the book, and you're asking your children to kind of like assess what's happening. And so their lessons can range from like 10 minutes on 10 to 15 minutes on average, I would say. There are some lessons that may take longer as you go further into level 2, but they're quick lessons. It's not very long. Okay, so here's my list of cons. It's only a couple. 1, there's a fair amount of writing involved if you choose to do the copy work in the enrichment activity. So, I think obviously enrichment means to, enhance, right? This is like the next, if you want to enhance this skill, do this part. You can choose to skip that, right? So, if you have a child that's just not ready for all that, or you can push it on and do it the next day. If you have a child, if your day is kind of crunched for time, put that on to the next day's lesson, as a lesson for the next day, as opposed to doing it all in one day. Or you can just skip it all together if you feel like your child has gotten it. Now, let me remind you, there's a lot of repetition throughout the book. So they're not always, the enrichment activities are not necessary. But there's a gnat in here, sorry y'all. But it can be a lot of writing if you do the copy work along with the enrichment activity. And not every lesson has an enrichment activity. So I'm just making things up at this point. I really don't have anything bad to say. Can I be honest? I'm just thinking, I was trying to think of the things that might be a con for someone who has a child who's young, really young, and not really able to write that much. But here's the other, and also another tip for that is that you can have your child, if you have a child who is writing, just starting out writing, or they just don't enjoy it as much, to kind of get them going. Maybe you can let them do the copy work based on their where they fall writing wise, from the shorter sentences or the longer ones, and then let them dictate to you their enrichment work, and you write it for them. So there's an idea. The other thing that my con was that there's not a separate workbook for the level 1 and level 2. Now, once you get into level 3, you've got your teacher's manual or your teacher's book, and then your student workbook. Until then, it's just one book. So if you want your child to do the work, there's not a separate notebook for copy work and enrichment activity. You actually need to have a notebook or loose leaf paper, whatever type of paper or writing that you use, or I guess whatever type of paper, notebooks or that kind of thing that you use for your child, you would need to make sure you have those things available. And we just use our composition notebooks for that for our kids. I just kind of make sure that I think I use like the second grade level composition notebook, so that the dotted lines until they're not quite ready for like the little lines yet. So they're still writing a little larger for that. So we're almost there though. So yeah, so be prepared. And I don't necessarily feel like that can be a con, especially when it comes to the price. It's what help keeps the price down, because I believe these books are like $17 or $18. Don't quote me. Let me think. I don't believe it was more than $20. If it was like $25 at most. And it's usually a lot less than that most places. But yeah. So you get one book, and then you can pay, $1 for a workbook. I mean, a notebook for your child, or a composition notebook for the younger ones, because they still need that middle line that's dotted, and the 2 lines, top and bottom lines, to help them stay on track writing lines, because they like to write big. But anyway, that's all I've got for levels 1 and 2 of first language lessons for the well-trained mind. And I hope that was helpful for those of you who are interested in well-trained mind, just their series, I guess. I don't know why words aren't coming to me this morning. But if you're interested, hope you enjoyed the video. Comment below if you've used this, and if you have any other cons. I really couldn't think of many, at least from my perspective. I tried to give some things that might be kind of like a con, depending on the family. But I enjoy this. I really feel like this should be a part of every person's kind of lower elementary language arts combo or package that they create. If you're into creating those things, I could literally pull together a combo for you and hand it to you and say, this will set your child up for great reading success in the future and writing. So, and I have proof, because my 9th grader has used the exact combo that I'm using with my boys, and it worked really well for her. So thank you so much for joining me in this video, and I will see you in the next one.